So, an expert attorney shares divorce stories. Coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Conversation Logic Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So, I was watching the video by a YouTuber by the name of Chisel Zed. And by the way, I suggest y'all go ahead and support that brother. Go watch his videos, give him the HBO special, even though he's not the Poor Man's Podcast. But he played a video about an attorney, I believe, out of Tennessee. And this attorney basically was giving his stories about how, the men that the stories that he's seen in the divorce court, where he, in his practice, men that he supported, or just stories in general, of how men were being completely ramrodded, absolutely screwed over in a family court structure. And again, we know that it's no secret that the family court system is where the real injustice is. Nobody can attack this. Nobody can say you're wrong. We have amount of evidence today to prove that men are screwed over and women are given preferential treatment by law. Nobody can sit here and say, well, that's not true. The way I do with what all the race nonsense when black people cry about being oppressed and racism, and I come in and destroy it with evidence, common sense, logic, and reason. Nobody can say that men aren't being screwed over. But to listen to this attorney just in his video just rattle off story after story after story of men just being ramrodded in a family court structure. He talked about a case in which a man was paying child support for a child, and he got an inheritance from his parents. The mother went to that, so she went back to child support for more money now, and she won. Now, I heard that, and I don't know how true this is, but I heard that when it comes down to divorce and alimony, inheritance basically doesn't count. So a person can't get an inheritance from another person when it comes down to, their spouse, when it comes down to divorce. I've heard this, but for somehow that doesn't go for child support. Even inheritance is at play. It's absolutely, I would say you're talking about an injustice here. There's another case when he talks about that a man was actually paying child support for a child until he married the mother, and he stopped paying child support, which would be obvious, right? Because if you marry the mother, then obviously you're supporting the child. Well, 10 years later, they got a divorce, and she went to the court for child support, and he had to pay back. He had to pay back child support for those 10 years that they were together that he wasn't paying. Paid, and that was absolutely atrocious. Again, anybody with common sense, any person who is fair will sit up, any judge that is, would say, okay, well, when they were married, obviously he was supporting the child, so we can't get it for back child support for something he clearly was already supporting. That's right there speaks of corruption. This is an example of how these corrupt judges use the court system to ramrod men. And then there's cases in which men who say support their child without an official order, but they support their child anyway, and it's something that they can actually, with receipts that they can prove. They give the woman checks with something that can be traced, but the woman go to child support, and that is not taken into consideration. They'll say we don't take that in consideration because it wasn't officially child support. Again, more corruption. That's idiotic. That should let you believe, right there, let you know that's, again, something that's going on with these judges to create these ridiculous laws. If a man is given to support the child, how can it not be taken into consideration because it wasn't official child support? That's ridiculous. Then there's another case when cases out there are the issue that a lot of men have a problem with. And this is issue that if a man is married to a woman and she gets pregnant and she has a child, for some reason the husband is automatically assumed to be the biological father of the child. even though there have been studies to show that in a full 1/3 of the cases that, that where they've checked in different areas, like a city here and there, they would do paternity tests, and they will find out that about a full 1/3 of the children that the men believed they were the biological father, they weren't. 1/3, right there, that should be grounds for mandatory DNA testing. For 1/3, I can see if it was 2%, okay, but 1/3. The feminists cry about less than that, but they're still saying we don't need the mandatory DNA testing. That's BS. The men should demand mandatory DNA tests, and no man's name should be allowed to go on any birth certificate until paternity is established with a DNA test. There should be DNA tests for every birth, for any man's name to go on a birth certificate. And if a man is not the biological father, his name should not have to go on a birth certificate. And even if he decide, he put his name on a birth certificate and decide, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, I have evidence I'm not the biological father, he should have to pay for that. This is the ridiculousness of the child support. There was another case that he talked about in which I believe he was paid child support for a child for 10 years. And then he got custody of the child for some reason. And the child went with him. And he didn't ask anything of the mother. The child lived with him for 5 years to the age of 15. And somehow, I think they had some falling out or something like that. And I guess he held the child to a standard and some type of standards he held the child to. He didn't let the child, just run free. You have rules. And they fought, for whatever reason, they had a falling out. And he decided to leave and go live with his mother. And what did the mother go do? Run down to the courts and put the man in child support. So he had the child for 5 years and asked the mother for nothing, and then she had the nerve to go put this man on child support. Again, this is the ridiculousness of the court system, and clearly the deck is stacked against men. And why is this? Well, people ask, how can these judges be so corrupt like this? Well, we all know the why is because the government gets a cut of the money. When child support check is paid out to the government by a man, the government gets their cut and then disperse the rest to the woman. So essentially, this is all about money. You got governments that's pretty much wasteful at every level, and they need to find money as much as they can. Now, I equate the government to it's like a leaky bucket. You put water in a bucket, it's just gonna start leaking out, and instead of plugging up the holes, they spend more time worrying about trying to get more water from other people than just plugging up the holes so they can be more efficient. And this is why I always speak out against MGTOW, because it's the MGTOW mentality where I'm just going to go my own way and I'm not going to be bothered. This MGTOW mentality is the reason why we have this situation going in the first place. If men would have stood up and said, no, we better get some rights, this nonsense would be going on in the family courts. Men would have rights, but because men aren't demanding them, we aren't getting them. This is why I say MGTOW, they need to stop going their own way and going to the government and demand the rights. If men were to do this, I guarantee you within 6 months, men will have rights, because then men will make their presence felt. And the only thing that makes politicians take notice is when they feel the heat. And if they feel the heat from men, they will change, absolutely. Anyway, I'll put a link in the description if you want to go see it. I thought it was just absolutely startling, these stories. And the video I saw was actually, I believe it was just part 1. I think Chez's also had a part 2, 3, and 4 of these stories. But he did have a video. One of them, I believe part 4, is when men win. But man, what men have to go through is just absolutely beyond amazing. Anyway, y'all, that's my 2 cents on this. I'll put a link in the description. Go ahead and watch the video. And as always, y'all, until next time.